David Grossman. Well, Andrew Orlowski is the executive editor of tech magazine The Register. Eileen Burbridge is a partner of Passion Capital in London, a venture capital firm that invests in tech startups. How would you characterise the state of tech startups just now, Eileen?
I think it's outstanding, particularly in London. I've been here for 10 years, and what's happening right now is the most exciting and I think the most ambitious that we've seen, in the sort of time that I've been here.
What kind of things are you investing in?
So we invest across the board in technology, digital, and internet startups. We've invested in 39 companies out of the Passion Capital Fund over the last 3 years, and we're really excited. We have at least 5, if not 10, that we're convinced are going to be, billion-dollar successes.
Andrew, would that be your analysis?
I think the government's emphasis on internet startups is giving us a reputation for superficiality that we've never really had before and that we don't deserve. British companies produce great engineers and are great improvisers, but it's almost, I think this is a bubble created by the political class, which is very kind of nervous about not being seen to be with it.
So this is it's kind of faddish, and the idea is that, they understand an app, but they don't actually understand how to create a game or a program or a thing.
I think it's more fundamental in that they want apps and internet companies to solve problems that they can't solve themselves.
So you would hear Matt Britton saying there's absolutely no reason why Britain couldn't be home to the next Google, the next Facebook. Would you agree with that?
Well, I think the biggest threat to a startup is Google itself, which was likely to crush a rival very, very.
But do you think that we have the capacity and the understanding to be able to create something like Facebook?
Absolutely. And I think what's interesting is you mentioned Google, you mentioned Facebook. Facebook wasn't even anywhere near being around when Google first launched, right? And it was a startup several years after Google even went public. So there's always opportunity for new companies to come and sort of challenge the old corporates. And I think to your most recent question, absolutely we have the capacity here in London. It's been proven, it's been demonstrated. In the last month alone, there have been $500 million acquisitions of DeepMind, which was a London-based startup in artificial intelligence. There was Natural Motion, which is a gaming company, another $500 million acquisition. We have the capacity without question.
What about the whole idea, though, that the government is kind of looking to TechCity? Where some of the big successes have been, when they've been attached to university. You talk about gaming, Dundee, and so forth. That's where a lot of the gamers came out of, which had a university background.
Exactly. I don't think there's a successful example of a top-down cluster created by the state anywhere in the world. They're all attached to universities and have finance capital next to them. But really, it's kind of peddling a kind of an illusion. It's almost like you'll be the lottery winner this week and cash out.
But what I was going to say about the cash out, do you think that people look at Candy Crush and think, well, we're in for the short term, we'll create something that'll be hugely successful and then we'll get out?
Well, VCs use this word exit, and I really question why we look to VCs as if they're some kind of demigods teaching us something.
I don't think of myself as a demigod. I'm flattered by that, but I don't think of myself that way. But also to your point about Candy Crush, or the makers of that, King Digital, not an overnight success by any means. It's 12 years old. It's been cash flow positive since 2005. It's not just an 18-month upstart, and it's doing very well. It's actually generating significant revenues, over almost $2 billion last year.
But when you look at a long-term investment, and that you're like a business angel coming in, do you look for something that, for example, again, Rockstar have talked about, we've got ideas for 45 years, not just Grand Theft Auto. Do you look for something that actually you think will yield over the long term, or you wanted to get in and get out quite quickly?
No. We don't have a short-term view at all. I mean, we are looking at value creation and sustainability. And if you look at every successful company that, we've kind of mapped our companies against or that we look for, we're not looking for an exit in 2 years. We want value creation that usually takes 5, 6, 7, up to 10 and even more years.
But if you look at something like TechCity, you could characterize it as a cluster. It just isn't a cluster around a university.
Well, I think it's quite telling that the definition of a tech company from TechCity itself has changed to include Marks and Spencer's, food retailers, the Bank of England, any company that does half of its business online. And they then proclaim that as a great success for
That's great, though. So, sorry to interrupt, because actually to your earlier point, you were kind of concerned there was too much focus on internet startups or web-based startups. So actually, to your point then, TechCity is about innovation, technology, entrepreneurship, generally within London and all across the UK, which I think is the right thing.
It strikes me that you're redefining failure as success, though, or the government is you.
How would you define success then?
I think what we don't get from this kind of fetishizing VC culture and fetishizing two kids in a garage changing the world is the long-term R&D that large companies can do. I interviewed Craig Ventnor, who decoded DNA a couple of years ago, and he's working on a biofuel that eats CO2, produces synthetic oil. He said he will get results in about 15 or 20 years. That's, for politicians, that's difficult because they want results in the short term to show that they're having an effect.
I don't think they're mutually exclusive. I mean, an acquisition that just happened yesterday was Facebook bought a UK-based company, Acerto, which is in low-orbiting sort of drone airplanes. That's deep technology. That team is based in Somerset. Those people are not two kids in a garage. I think the focus on that as a success story and as a path to success is a great example alongside web startups as well. They're not mutually exclusive. It's not a zero-sum game.
So if I was to ask you finally, what has to change in your view to make this a sustainable and a kind of fundamental part of our economy, what would it be?
Well, David Cameron said something quite interesting earlier this month when he was announcing a partnership on the Internet of Things with Germany. He said the Germans will do the engineering and the British will, I'm paraphrasing, design the websites. Why can't the British do engineering too?
And we are a nation of engineers.
It's already part of the economy, Kirsty. I'm sorry. It's 27% of new job creation last year, right? So it's significant.
Thank you both very much indeed. American rappers, the Wu-Tang